Christian story in that context of sacrifice. It was a wonderful way of giving the mystery cult's application to the Hebrew people, the Jews in particular. But it wasn't, of course. No self-respecting, earnest Jew in his right mind would have been deceived by such what he would have seen as a Greek ruse to lead him astray from the Torah, first 5 books of the Old Testament. It makes very good use of Jesus in the story choosing crucifixion, but that's not what the story chose crucifixion for. Christianity is not some extension of the Hebrew ancient practice of animal sacrifice. Well, and sacrificing their children come to that. The Jesus story is not an upgrade to Judaism, but Paul's understanding of the perfect sacrifice, with the absence in his writings of anything much to do with the Jesus story, as in the Gospels, does betray a preemptive hope in Judaism that sacrifice come to an end and its purpose be complete, and the Essene teacher of righteousness, as of Qumran and so on, Dead Sea Scrolls, prepares the story of Jesus for such an interpretation. To those who will come to the kingdom by such means, God has provided in the past and will continue to provide, I suspect, all sorts of understandings that achieve life eternal. Whether it's the traditional Christian view or the modernist understanding or Islam idea of heaven, Buddhist notion of enlightenment, Hindu notion of enlightenment as well in a similar way. Even in science there's a certain hope that man will become something wonderful. And it's a selflessness that builds there for a future that the scientist himself will not see. But still he does it, because he wants this wonderful creation to come about. A notion of a perfect eternal state for man. In a bizarre way, the secular scientist can be more spiritual than the religious person that goes a long way in that. Well, it's a bit like I was on, and I said before somewhere, I was on Liverpool, not Liverpool Street, Liverpool railway station, and a chap came up to me and wanted something for breakfast or coffee or food of some sort, and I gave him what he asked. And I mean, less than a minute later, I saw him asking someone else too. I'd been had, hadn't I? I didn't mind. I was feeling very Christian at that time of my life, and I just thought to myself, well, I don't mind being had, Lord. Much better that than not responding to what I understood was to be a true need. I'm glad I made the mistake. Not a problem, and I'm sure, Father, it's no cost to you. It's probably no cost to me either. Love you, Lord. Secular scientist is a bit like that. He's doing something for which he can't get the long-run reward, but he's working for the long-run reward for mankind, for society. He's not even specifically thinking for his great-great-grandchildren, he's just thinking the future of man. Wow. He values it. He chooses to value it. Wow. Good on him, eh? Thank you, Heavenly Father. You see, every religion, every belief system can teach those that want to love God with all their heart, soul, mind, and strength. Isn't that lovely? I don't think, and I'm not the first to have this view, that God has only really focused on Western countries, because that's the only place he's really, in large measure, taken Christianity. Well, he's increasingly, in more recent centuries, taken it all over the place, but no, it's all his creation, all his people, all his creatures, all that he's made. He's a wonderful, magnificent God. And these other world religions and belief systems and so on, each have something of his blessing and help and leading. They are not satanic. I would press that even Satanism, in some sense, for instance, has to value integrity, or nothing could be made at all. How could you make hell without anything holding together? Without believing in it? I mean, it may sound nonsense, but if you're in hell and you're not believing you're there, well, what's the point? You got nowhere. Yeah. Do you see? There's got to be belief. There's got to be integrity. There's got to be continuity. This is the fabric of. This is not just the fabric of God's transitory universe. It's the values of God. I'm not saying that it's immature and grown up. No way. It's more like, I think the Steiner view of creation, which is, it starts as this seething, violent state, perhaps exampled by interstellar space, the stars, the suns, all these suns, incredible, furious chaoses of energy and power and intense heat and violence. And that this Now, which way is it? Involutes or devolves into what we see as creation, the stable earth with its crust of solid continents and the possibility of life. And it sees the beginning of, like the Genesis part of the Torah. Well, in fact, I think it sees really much of the Old Testament as 1,000 ways of describing this act of God creating what we see as the transitory universe. And the dividing out and separation that we see in Adam, male and female and so on, that even that is something of the story of God's from our perspective, violent separation of himself, ultimately into what we see as matter and the possibility of life. And then there's this evolution of life. I don't think I'm giving a good description of it because I can't honestly say I follow the incredibly endless, complex writings of Steiner, but after the sort of involution stage, there's a devolution stage where, there's an evolution stage where man develops from something, plants and so on and so forth. And perhaps it was a salute to notions of Darwinian evolution and that. Or perhaps it was some original enlightenment that Steiner had. Interesting stuff. Let me pause a sec. Right, well, let me first point out, when I checked this recording, the first 13 seconds, I wiped by mistake. I've never done that before, although this is numbered, whatever it's numbered, this recording. I've done well over 2,000 now recordings, and I don't think I've ever actually made quite that mistake. I thought I'd made it once or twice, but this time I did. And I was astonished to find not only had I done it, but when I checked, it started at the beginning of a sentence that if you didn't know I'd missed the first 13 seconds, you wouldn't know that it was missing. Now, I'm going to leave it as missing, okay? In an imaginative exercise that I'm going to just trust God for it and see what part this is to play. So as it stands, the recording still makes sense. Well, I don't mean everybody would think it makes sense, of course, but now it's not some modesty when I say I don't understand Steiner's works. I mean, I'm not sure, having looked at it, that I can't imagine anybody really understands it, but anyway, I expect they do. Some people are going to be devoted to it, aren't they? And they are. Yes. You see, we think it's our understanding that somehow is so crucial, but it's not. It's our passionate desire to love God. That's what's crucial. It's not some theosophy or theology or religion or it's not the understanding. I knew Mum incredibly well. We were incredibly close. Doesn't mean to say I understood Mum. And as I got older, I just thought, my goodness, she's not rational. This, of course, is an enlightenment that most men come to, that women are not rational. But it's not that, is it? It's that their perspective goes up and down. They're not stable. And you may think this is the most awful sexist development here. I don't mean to be that. I just mean that, none of us are constant, but there's something about the female compared to the male, that the male, at least I may have, sure, it could well be cultural, I do agree. I'm not, I'm not condemning or wanting to criticize. I'm just saying that men have traditionally provided a stability. Women provide a different stability in that they have been so wonderful in providing home, family, and nurture. But, well, my experience of relational stability to the male, they seem much more varied, volatile than men in general. Now, this is an observation from the experience I've had, and you may have had different experience. Bless you. That's fine. Where was I? But suddenly it's all turned on its head, and we find that it's not understanding. Understanding is most of the time, it's inadequate, it's wrong, misguided. But the heart, the devotion was right, and great good came of it. Great blessing. It's this aspect, isn't it, that an all-powerful God is wonderful if he loves you. If not, it's the most frightening thing you can imagine. Having said that, it is true that an all-loving being that's totally incompetent or totally lacking understanding, well, that would be pretty useless too, wouldn't it? We need both. Perhaps that's the answer. We need both. And perhaps each one helps the other. The understanding helps us to be more loving, and being more loving helps us to be understanding. Yes! I'll buy that. That's good. Thank you, Heavenly Father.